The kinder we are to ourselves from the inside out, the kinder we will be to ourselves from the outside in. Hi there, welcome to Sunny with a Chance of Chaos. I'm Lindsay, your host, and I'm so glad you're here. So grab a coffee, get comfy, and get ready for a little bit of chaos and a whole lot of sunshine. Hey friends, welcome back. I'm happy to be here as always. This week I'm getting a little bit brave. I want to talk about body image. This is a rabbit hole of a topic, and I am not exactly a pioneer here. The fact is that many people, women in particular, have body image hang-ups. This is not breaking news. However, body image is something I myself have not been willing to be vulnerable about until very, very recently, within the last couple of years. Yet, it is something that has plagued me since I was 14 years old. And I know it's something that has likely plagued a few of you or your friends or your children. For some folks, negative thoughts about their body are simply a passing thing. For others, it can be much more dangerous and can spiral into serious life-threatening eating disorders and mental health crises. I seem to have landed somewhere in the middle. The thoughts I had weren't just passing ones, but my issues with body image were also never life-threatening. When I say I was plagued by thoughts of body image, I mean these thoughts had happened every day, multiple times a day, since I was 14 years old. These were not voluntary thoughts. It was like an unwelcome little voice whispering to me. And when I ignored it, it would turn up the volume, the frequency, the intensity, the duration of these messages. And the messages it was whispering, well, like yelling at me, they weren't exactly broadcasting to me that I was perfect just the way I am. It said some pretty awful things over the years. Here's some context. When I was 14, I was very impressionable, like most teen girls in 1994. Puberty had hit, self-consciousness was skyrocketing. I seeked to find a baseline measure of beauty. So I was looking at my friends, I was looking at the media, TV, movies, YM magazine, 17 magazine. Do you remember the Why Me and the Trauma Rama sections of those magazines? Okay, that was a sidebar. They were so ridiculous. It was really funny. Anyway, I was looking in these places to take stock of what was going to help make me pretty and thin and likable and keep me that way. And the images I was seeing in 1994 were of extremely thin, waif-like women, many of whom were complaining that they were fat. I'm embarrassed to admit now in my mid-40s how much these images influenced me. The one that stuck with me the most was from the movie Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, of all places. If you haven't seen that movie recently, find a scene, any scene on YouTube with Courtney Cox's collarbones in it, and then you will understand what my body goals were in 1994. She was painfully thin in that film. 14-year-old Lindsay thought she was stunning and perfect, and 14-year-old Lindsay thought that's how she was supposed to look too. And just like that, a neural pathway was formed that has taken me 30 years of work to rewire thought patterns 3 decades old that I'm still trying to unlearn. It was in that era that being thin became the center point of what gave me worth and value. So I started counting fat grams because that's what you did in the 90s because carbs were still cool back then. I started obsessing over the size of my jeans and the flatness of my belly. I started sucking in my stomach all day long. It became completely subconscious, like involuntary. It was like muscle memory. Other than during my 2 pregnancies where I physically couldn't suck my stomach in, I spent all my waking hours with my stomach pulled in. Sadly, this habit went on for way too long and has actually had long-term negative impacts on my back and my hips. It's wild. It's just wild. I never stopped eating altogether. I never purged after meals, but I had a very unhealthy view of myself, and I had a very unhealthy relationship with food. What I suffered from was not an eating disorder by definition. My behaviors and thought patterns, I discovered later, would be classified as body image distortions and disordered eating. Disordered eating may include restrictive eating, compulsive eating, irregular or inflexible eating patterns. Think fad kind of diets that really restrict the intake of any particular food category. Obviously, this doesn't include people who just choose not to eat meat or have a dairy allergy or something like that. It also may include something like intermittent fasting, where there's periods of the day where you're completely restricted from intaking food of any sort. So that would be sort of classified as disordered eating. Well, disordered eating is not a healthy way to go. I assure you, it's very common. I am certain that there are many of you, male, female, older, younger, who can relate to feeling some shame about their body at some point in their lives, and as a result, altering their eating or other behavior patterns in order to compensate for that shame. Now, it feels important to note that Courtney Cox herself claimed she never had an eating disorder. She actually stated in 2005, "I don't want to feel that I'm responsible for anorexia across the country." It wasn't the fault of Courtney or Kate Moss or any one celebrity in particular. It was the body and beauty standards of that decade overall that created a generation of little girls who were aching to be thinner. So back to my whisper voice. The whisper voice, which I came to call the ticker tape, it started running nonstop when I was about 18. It's a marquee of sorts that runs through my head on a loop. It calls me all kinds of horrible things. It tells me stories about shame and guilt about what I had eaten that day. Once that ticker tape started, I couldn't turn it off. I would go to bed every night, and that ticker tape would tell me how bad I had been with my eating that day and how disgusting I was. And I would promise myself every night to do better the next day. And for what it's worth, there was nothing about my eating that I actually needed to be ashamed of. It was very balanced, but there was shame. There was so much shame. I hated eating in front of people. I always imagined they were thinking, "Oh, she'd be so much thinner. She just didn't eat that." Isn't that insanity? The narrative was unrelenting and I couldn't turn it off. Any middle-aged females listening right now who were also teenagers at the height of Kate Moss's wild success on the runway will understand all of this, I'm sure. And I know that society and media puts its own special pressure on the men of my generation. Generally speaking, males have had to manage a variety of other unhealthy expectations about their bodies. Regardless of gender, my heart breaks for anyone who believes that their body isn't good enough. A well-known quote attributed to Kate Moss, a prominent model in the 90s, is, "Nothing tastes as good as skinny feels." This was a very popular mentality in that era. This quote has been linked to the endorsement of unhealthy eating behaviors, and other celebrities during the 90s often expressed sentiments reflecting the pressures of maintaining a specific body type, with some even highlighting the negative impact on their mental health. We were surrounded by it. And it's no wonder that in those formative years, some of us 90s teens ended up in poor relationship with our bodies and poor relationship with food. Okay, what is body image? What is this and why does it matter? Body image is defined by the American Psychological Association as the mental picture one forms of one's body as a whole, including its physical characteristics and one's attitudes toward these characteristics. When we look at ourselves in the mirror, what are we looking at? What are we looking for? Well, it likely depends on whether or not we have a positive or a negative body image, and also what we're comparing ourselves to. What I've learned is that body image actually comes from the inside, not the outside. I spent years and years and tons of emotional and physical energy trying to change the way my body looked objectively, and I was not working at all on changing the way I felt about it subjectively. I was not working on unlearning those old lessons or rewiring those old pathways. I just kept leaning in harder to disordered eating and hard HIIT workouts every day and calorie counting and fat gram counting and intermittent fasting and beating myself up. One day, a few summers ago, I was paddleboarding with my best friend, and you know her, S. We were chatting about body image and the ticker tape and the damage it was doing to me. And I had a sudden realization right there in the middle of the bay on my paddleboard. I finally understood. I had been focusing my attention so hard on the external version of me, and I wasn't doing the work to fix the inside. So I said to S, I'm standing on my paddleboard, and I was like, I got it. I figured it out. I don't actually need to change my body. I need to change the way I feel about my body. It was a big moment. And that started a new journey for me, and it's one I'm still on to this day. What I realized is that if we love our bodies and we have gratitude for them and show them respect by doing healthy things for them, they will become beautiful to us. That was the shift from an external to an internal focus. And that was when the ticker tape started to get a lot quieter. We've been seeing a shift for about a decade now, but in 2023, we saw a big shift in the way the media portrayed bodies. There was a movement towards acceptance and body positivity and diversity and embracing a wide range of body types. Models were less photoshopped, and ads featured a wider range of sizes and shapes in their models. In other words, the media started to focus on how we feel and less on how we looked. So why is body image important? Well, in my case, the negative body image I adopted at an early age has impacted me every single day of my life. It caused me to question almost every bite of food I put in my mouth for 30 years. Except for funnel cake, I never questioned funnel cake. It's never a thing I question. If I had adopted a positive body image, I would have had a happier teenagehood. I would have been less stressed about how my dress looked on my wedding day. I would have enjoyed beach days with my kids more. I would have less back pain. I would have been more engaged with life. I would have been less distracted by unreasonable expectations of myself and my body. There is a peacefulness around me now that has settled in about my body image. That peacefulness was missing for me for most of my life. And I have worked really, really hard to undo the thought patterns and get to a place of peace and acceptance and gratitude with regard to my body. It was a lot of work. So what work did I do? Well, I started by reading a book. I don't know if it was the best one on the market, but it served a purpose for me. It was called Perfectly Imperfect. That title was problematic. We'll talk about that in a minute. It started me on a path of acceptance and healing of my body. I bought a workbook with exercises and journal prompts that helped me create a more positive inner dialogue. To be honest, though, the most impactful thing I did, this was so cool. I created a timeline. I started with that fateful day with Courtney Cox's collarbones, and I mapped out all of the times that my body image was influenced by comments or outfits or changes in hormones or friendships or relationships or societal expectations. It was wild to see the ways my view of myself had been impacted throughout the years, and it was extremely healing. About 6 months after creating that timeline and doing a lot of the other work as well, I had a major breakthrough. At that time, I had stopped beating myself up at 5:30 a.m. with HIIT workouts that would sometimes cause injury or sometimes even vomiting. I had stopped restricting the number of calories I took in each day. I had developed a little curve of flesh kind of like around my belly and over my hip bone. A year before, that little curve would have sent me into a spiral of restriction and anxiety and self-hatred. But I looked in the mirror one day in July and I saw that curve and I went, oh, I don't hate how that looks. It was a moment for sure. The first moment I had ever embraced a part of me that was curved or, by my old standards, flawed in any way. It is my belief that the beauty industry, historically speaking, is actually not all that interested in ensuring that we feel good about ourselves on the inside or are actually healthy. Because if we felt that way, we wouldn't spend our hard-earned time and energy and money on their products and programs. If we all felt great about ourselves, we'd never buy another Slim Fast shake or a Beachbody membership. The beauty industry in North America is projected to make $123.7 billion US in 2025. It must be added that most of these dollars will be in the realm of personal care, not health and wellness. I get Instagram ads every day that tell me I need to fix what's wrong with me. I need that cream for my cellulite. I need that bra for more lift, that shapewear to get rid of my tummy. It goes on and on and on. And if spending some money on these things makes you feel a little better getting into that dress, then go for it. I only encourage you to dig into the underlying belief that even without that shapewear, you are still worthy and perfect and beautiful. Not an easy balance to find. I get it. Healthy eating and healthy lifestyle is obviously very, very important, and it would be so great if the focus of our efforts was less about how it makes us look and more about how it makes us feel or how healthy we are. If you have a gym membership or a Peloton, applause. I applaud you. What I'm interested in is the motivation that drives us to participate in these things. Do we go to the gym so we can be skinny? Or do we go to the gym so we can be healthy and strong and keep up with our kids? Do we cut down on carbs and fat and increase our whole food intake to be thinner? Or do we do it because we know it will increase our life expectancy? The way our bodies look is not always indicative of how healthy we are. For example, people can run hundreds of kilometers for years on end and still have cellulite in their thighs. It just happens. We want the look of our bodies to match the effort we put in, but that isn't always going to be the case. Focusing on different measures, such as increasing how much weight you can lift, or how far and fast you can run that 5K, or the quality of your sleep, these are much better measures of health than the number on the scale or the size of your jeans. I need to go back and talk about the title of that book. We need to talk about the word imperfection for a minute. I think it's bullshit. Imperfect indicates that there is a measure of perfection we're aiming towards, and that when we don't meet those measures, we are lesser than. But there are not two bodies in this entire world that are the same, and therefore, there's actually nothing to compare our bodies to. I know, try and wrap your head around that. It took me a minute, but it makes so much sense to me. So when I bought the book, Perfectly Imperfect, I had to look past the title and focus on the content, which was legitimately helpful. When we are looking in the mirror and we find so-called flaws, freckles or cellulite, a belly roll, wrinkles, whatever is your kryptonite, try to remind yourself there is not another you out there. Your so-called imperfections are actually what make you you, and therefore what make you perfect. Once we remove the comparison, we realize we are perfect. I know these things all sound well and good coming out of my mouth, and you're like, I've read the motivational memes on Pinterest and they don't do a thing to move the needle on improving my body image. They're just words, Lindsay. But I promise, if you start to view your imperfections as perfections and map out the origin of what made you hate your body in the first place, the needle will start to move. I'm not offering a cure here. This is just one person's story. I am not offering a one-way ticket out of body distortion hell. For me, the ticker tape still gets loud sometimes, but it's a whole lot quieter than it used to be, and I'm getting better and better at telling it to be quiet. We don't need you anymore. The 90s are over, babe. The kinder we are to ourselves from the inside out, the kinder we will be to ourselves from the outside in. Okay, let's dig into the stacks. There are hundreds of books out there on eating disorders, healthy eating, disordered eating, all of it, our relationship with food. I chose to highlight the book Nourish, How to Heal Your Relationship with Food, Body, and Self by Heidi Schauster. She's a Boston-based nutrition counselor and expert in disordered and emotional eating. The podcast I found is called The Recovery Warrior Shows. It's a mini series called Beyond Body, Letting Go of Food and Exercise Checklist with guest Erin Witherspoon. It's a whole discussion on creative healing and relinquishing some of the control that we feel we need to have. I also found a TED Talk called Believing is Seeing, a new perspective on body dysmorphia with Meredith Leston. She works out of Oxford University. And lastly, my gratitude minute. I want to thank my body. Now, this is one of the exercises that the Body Image Workbook taught me. I want to share it with you right now. I want you to think of 3 things that you are grateful for about your body. Something about the way it looks, something about the way it feels or the way it functions. We often take our bodies for granted as we're too worried about what they look like. And we forget to be appreciative of the fact that they're keeping us alive. So thank you, body, for bringing my healthy babies into the world, for the creative energy you give me to make this podcast, and for the arms that I have that hug the people that I love. I also need to thank an old friend, C, who played a very, very important role in helping me quiet the ticker tape by teaching me to replace its messages with more loving ones. Thanks everyone for being here. Don't forget to turn yourself away from the mirror and away from the scale and maybe turn towards the sun. See you next time. Bye.